Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini episode, I've yet two more incredibly bizarre stories, folks. One, this man sees these bizarre luminous beings. Another, this guy encounters these red glowing eyes in a lava tube. Let's get into the first article. Vanished time and luminous entities. Indiana teenagers lost 3 hours on a back road at night. Let's get into the article now and read this witness's story. Something followed Roddy home that night in 1981, a blinding light that swallowed 3 hours and left him staring at beings made of pure luminescence. The deeper he looked into the missing time and the strange childhood occurrences that resurfaced afterward, the more he realized this encounter was not an isolated event, but part of a much larger pattern. Let's get into the actual article now, folks, and hear this man, or I guess when he was a teenager's story. Roddy, the experiencer, claims that when he was 16, he lived with his parents in Newcastle, Indiana. It was 1981. After picking up a girl in his parents' 1978 Chrysler Newport, they attended a school dance and spent time together. Frustrated by her lack of interest, Roddy decided to take her home around 11 o'clock p.m. After dropping her off, he began his 12-mile journey home. This almost feels like the opening to a slasher movie, folks, because this guy says his girlfriend really wasn't interested in him, meaning he basically wanted to get with her that night, and then he had this experience with these aliens. If this were a slasher movie, he probably would have been killed. Either way, let's continue with this guy's story, folks. As he drove, he noticed a light in his rearview mirror that became increasingly blinding. Initially, he thought it might be a motorcycle coming up behind him. Suddenly, he blacked out. When he came to, he found himself parked on the side of the road, disoriented. He stared out the window of his car and saw strange, luminescent creatures hovering just above the hood, which was about 3 feet off the ground. Realizing that the interior of his car was filling with smoke, he immediately rolled down the window. When he looked back up, the creatures had vanished. Checking the time, he was astonished to see it was now 4 o'clock a.m. He then drove home, which was only about 5 minutes away. Roddy recalled that quite a bit of time had passed between seeing the light and waking up, and he had no idea how he got to that location. I'm not surprised, folks. That tracks with most, stories of people having missing time. Do you think, Roddy suspected that this was maybe not the first time, folks? He says that he basically remembers, after the experience here, that he remembers further back into his childhood similar encounters that he couldn't explain. So, I'm not surprised that after this he began to remember. So let's continue with this man's story, folks. The next morning, his parents noticed damage to the car, which ultimately cost around $500 to repair. Roddy was at a loss to explain what had happened, although he speculated it might have been electrical in nature. Notably, he was not a smoker, so he knew a dropped cigarette couldn't have caused the fire. Regarding the creatures he encountered, he described them as looking more like ghosts or entities than humans, comparing their appearance to Casper, the cartoon character, saying they resembled light itself. At no point did Roddy see any saucer or identifiable craft, only the lights. Additionally, he mentioned that he did not extinguish the fire in the car. He only observed the smoke and the damage. He suspected that the creatures had somehow started the fire, but didn't know how they would have put it out. Following this encounter, which was his only one, Roddy remembered some strange occurrences from his childhood. In the house where he lived, he sometimes heard unusual clicking sounds that seemed to draw closer to him. One specific night, when he was about 8 or 9 years old, he woke up around 3 o'clock a.m. and distinctly heard someone in the living room playing with his Hot Wheels toy set. As he listened, trying to figure out who was playing with them, he felt a presence in his room. When asked if the house was haunted, Roddy didn't believe it was. He suspected that creepy events he experienced at home were somehow connected to his extraterrestrial encounter at age 16. Transcribed from Lost Time, They Terrified Me, UFO Chronicles podcast. Roddy's account has some very interesting elements of it, folks. Some of them could basically be indeed of a ghostly nature or of an alien extraterrestrial nature, but the most it reminds me of is the Glimmerman phenomena. These luminous beings feel like they could be Glimmerman if they glowed in the night, folks, but that's just me. Maybe there's a connection, but we'll talk more about that later. Let's move on to the next article, Red Eyes in the Lava Tube. The moment a Mount St. Helens hike broke reality. Let's get into this terrifying account and hear what the witnesses saw on their hike, folks, because it sounds truly phenomenal. Let's read the opening now and get into the full account in a moment. Some encounters unfold so suddenly that your mind cannot process what your eyes are telling you, leaving only fear and a desperate instinct to escape. What lingered inside that narrow Mount St. Helens lava tube raises the question of whether something still moves in those caves that daylight can never touch. That is a hell of an opening, folks. Indeed. Is there something in those lava tubes, folks? Perhaps something that's always lived there, or maybe even inhabited it after the eruption at Mount St. Helens, folks. Because that beggars the question. When this mountain erupted, what happened to the entities, or basically possible entities, on it or in it? Either way, let's continue with this article, folks, and read more about this story, and then we can theorize about this story and the last one we read about a little more. I've actually seen glowing red eyes while I was with another person, both of us in our 20s at the time. We were at Mount St. Helens in Washington, intending to go hiking and explore one of the large lava caves. The surrounding area is filled with lava tubes, which are essentially open holes left by trees that were there when the volcano erupted in 1980. These tubes can descend straight down into the earth or lead into the side of a hill. It varies. My friend and I noticed a large tube that entered the side of a hill, so we decided to go inside it. It was daylight outside, and the tube was tall enough for us to walk upright. Albert hunched over. As we ventured deeper into the cave, I realized that all I could see in front of me was darkness. It seemed like no light from outside was reaching the tube. And this is the exact one place no one wants to encounter some unknown thing. Maybe it was a cryptid, or maybe even some demonic entity, folks, or maybe even some forest spirit. But what this guy's about to encounter, folks, probably left him completely white in terror. So let's continue our witness's story, folks, and hear exactly what he was about to meet face to face. I'm not sure how far we ventured in, but suddenly I saw red eyes staring back at me. I can't quite describe them adequately because I had never seen eyes like that before and haven't since. The eyes were definitely red, but they didn't appear glowy like artificial red eyes. I couldn't see or hear what those eyes belonged to, but then they began to advance toward us in an unusual way. I can only describe as a pacing movement as they moved forward. I screamed, "Look at the eyes!" and my friend screamed as well. We both bolted out of that cave as fast as we could. Logically, I would think the eyes had to be reflecting light from outside for me to see them, yet I distinctly remember it being pitch black in the cave with only those red eyes illuminated in front of me. It wasn't a giant cave, probably only about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide at best. We didn't make it very far in, but apparently they made it far enough in that it was completely dark, and there was something in there with them. Now, it sounds like S didn't know how far this cave or tunnel went, folks, so for all we know, folks, it might lead to under Mount St. Helens, perhaps maybe to this legendary cave system or tunnel system that's said to crisscross not only America, folks, but the entire world. We've talked about this before, folks, that there are possible entrances to the inner earth, and perhaps us here basically stumbled across one of them, and maybe this entity was some sort of guardian for this maybe entrance, folks, and if they didn't get out of that tunnel as immediately as possible, folks, this guardian could have decided just to kill them and get rid of the remains. And I would not be surprised if someone went back the next day, folks, went into this tunnel and found it blocked off at the end. But that's just me speculating, folks. Now, with the first account with, these mysterious luminous beings, to me, folks, when this witness saw them, it sounds like they had just released them from an abduction encounter and that they were going back to wherever it is they came from, folks. But that's just me speculating. Either way, truly interesting stories, folks, but we're now at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure at the part of the bell they'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.